Danni Hoshino writes and performs music as Lightbird. It's a new name for the veteran folk rock guitarist, marking a new and deeply personal chapter in Hoshino's life. A life that seemed to unravel 3 years ago, when Hoshino came out as a transgender woman.
You had a good day, girl, so why are you crying on the train home from Manhattan?
Today, her life is transformed. She's starting fresh in a new city, New York, working on new songs for a new album, and living, finally, she says, the life she was always meant to live. I'm David Hunt. I sat down with Danni Hoshino, Lightbird, just 2 weeks before the release of her newest single, a bittersweet ballad titled All Right. It's a duet with Brooklyn singer Ry Lotz that explores the broken promises and broken hearts of a romantic relationship at its end. The music crashes as Lightbird takes a deep dive into her conflicting emotions.
You don't need a reason to be mad at me. I'm asking is more of the melody. It's just like I know you will cry your eyes. I will meet you in that bed tonight. Will you hold me till it feels alright?
The song, released on Transgender Day of Visibility, is true to life. In 2022, just 5 weeks before her wedding day, the singer realized that the life of a cisgender heterosexual man was, to say the least, not all right. She explains.
I think a lot of trans girls I know feel like butterflies because we've come out as this new beautiful thing. But in the same way, like, you have to kind of break down first before you can like emerge as this new beautiful thing. So there was a lot of difficult moments along the way. I grew up in a suburb of Boston, Newton, Massachusetts. My mom's from that area. My dad grew up in San Francisco. His side of the family is Japanese American. My mom's side of the family is like Eastern European Jewish. We're a close family, and I had really kind of assumed that I would always stay in the Boston area, and was very much on the path at the time that I did realize I was trans. I was living up in another suburb of Boston, had a 9-to-5 job, and was getting ready to get married. And then this like lightning strike happened where I suddenly realized like some of the things that I had been trying to understand about myself were like this, this very deep thing about gender that I had just never considered until I was in my 30s. Weddings, especially heterosexual, traditional weddings, are very gendered. Like, there's so many things about them that are like very specific to the gender roles in terms of what you're going to wear and what you're going to say and what, how you're appearing in the wedding. And I think that was becoming increasingly difficult for me to like visualize myself there. My mom kept poking me and saying, have you found a suit to wear for the wedding yet? And I would say like, no, I just haven't you haven't gotten that. But really what was happening was I was sitting at my computer and Googling men's wedding dress over and over because like I couldn't be okay with the idea of wearing a suit for some reason. And I was like, there must be something else I could wear that would make me feel, I don't know, right somehow.
Well, it gets harder the longer it's been till I look back from now and say what it was then. Like, who was that girl.
I think the most important thing for me was deciding early on, like, I need to have, like, this is an era of my life where I need to be having my own back first before anyone else's, because I won't make it through it if I don't. And I think the songs sing to that, and to the sometimes like sad realizations of what that comes along with. I think specific to All Right, that song to me is, I wrote it about the end of my relationship after realizing I was trans. And it was a really, really good relationship. It was somebody I was, getting ready to marry, and someone that I love very much. And, sometimes life throws you a curveball and something big changes, and good, great things happen as a result, but hard, sad things happen as a result too. And I think that song in particular sort of examines the tension between those two things, that like sometimes you can't have one without the other.
You sing about wanting to remain friends. Did that happen?
That did happen. We've been through we've been through ups and downs since the time that I came out, and we kind of disentangled our lives, but ultimately, yeah, we stayed very close and talk frequently. And we had two dogs together, and now each of us has one of the dogs, so we stay in close touch about how the dogs are doing. And yeah, she's still one of the most important people to me.
Well, I'm sad and I'm lonely, and I feel that I only smile to get through the day. But I'm telling you, my baby, 3 cups and maybe I feel differently today. Oh.
It's probably cliche to say Lightbird is rising like a phoenix out of the ashes of her past life and loves. So let's just say her transition has touched nearly every aspect of herself, leading her in new directions creatively as much as geographically. The new album, likely due out in June 2026, is a case in point.
But my body's holding the pain that is folding me along. The memories I bear, and I know that you're sorry, like the night sky starry. To see, I'll need clear and space.
Yeah, so it's my first full-length album with this project, Lightbird. It's a collection of songs that most of which I wrote following my realization that I was trans and coming out as transgender, but some from before that time too. So I think the story of the album sort of like spans the time before, slightly before and after. So just kind of different parts of that journey to self-discovery and self-love and understanding. I've been a songwriter for a long time, and I've always, drawn from that personal well for, what I wanted to write about. But I do think that prior to all this, I just didn't really feel like I had a real perspective or a real like voice that I felt strongly about. And I think now being like, okay, I've really got something to sing about, has pushed me to make it that much more like honest and raw and exposed.
Tell me about the name Lightbird. Where did that come from?
When I came out as trans, I had like a little nascent solo project I had been working on, but I thought, this is a great time to just choose a new name and like a new identity and kind of start fresh. And I have a song. It's one of the couple singles that I already have out that I had written years and years ago, called "Bird in the Dark." And as I was thinking about names, I think I was thinking about that song and sort of the imagery of like, I don't know, thinking of myself sort of like as previously sort of like a dark bird who was sort of like a little more reserved and meek and pulled back and not necessarily wanting to be in the spotlight. And now kind of entering into this period where I very much wanted to be in the spotlight and wanted to like celebrate myself and put myself out there. So kind of a bird stepping into the light.
It's hidden on the
playing guitar since I was 12. So for a long time, I think at the time when I started playing guitar, it was mostly because my friends had started playing and my older brother played. And so that seemed like the cool thing to do. The music that I gravitated towards early on came from music that my parents were listening to. Lots of singer-songwriters from the 70s. My mom always had Paul Simon or Simon and Garfunkel playing in the car. My dad was more on the rock side of that era of music and introduced me to the Allman Brothers and Jackson Brown. He was always listened to Santana a lot. So the music, especially of like, yeah, that classic rock era, late 60s, early 70s, really, really like got in my head at a young age. And at the time that I started to really start taking music a little more seriously in high school and college and started to write my own music, that was like inescapable. And I think continues to be where I draw a lot of my musical sensibilities to this day, both in terms of songwriting and guitar playing, but also my approach to production and sort of the overall sound I'm trying to cultivate, especially in recordings.
I was going to say you're sort of an old soul musically.
Yes, definitely. And like there had been times, at like when I started this project Lightbird, and I was kind of thinking, okay, like what what is it going to be, because I it's a fresh start. I could kind of like I could try to pivot into something else, make it like poppier or something that I feel like would be more appealing to, like, I don't know, whatever is cool right now. But the truth is that I've always been pretty out of touch with what's cool right now. And just like I know what I like, and like I think ultimately what's cool is to just to be super authentic about what you're making and make what kind of comes out. And yeah, that like sort of classic rock sound and a lot of folk influence is just what comes out. So why fight it?
Do you only say the things you mean? 'Cause meaning easily gets lost with feeling. And I can recall the days I doubted I would be around to breathe in my 34th year.
Lightbird's gender journey and musical journey intertwine in her upcoming album, weaving a complex portrait of an artist grappling with the past while embracing the possibilities of the future. I asked Lightbird about her earliest experiences with gender expression.
Who will always be there, but I guess I have to find a way to forgive myself.
It is hard to think back again because I don't think I had very clear thoughts at a very young age about like what I was or what I wasn't. The most specific example, like, and there are breadcrumbs that I can go back and follow and be like, oh, kind of feel like I know what that was about now. But like, the biggest thing was that I never ever wanted to get my hair cut. I always wanted it to be long, and it was like a very every time my mom would make me go get a haircut, it was like a traumatizing experience. Like I would leave crying a lot of the time. And so that to me is probably the best example of that feeling of like I don't, whether or not it was because, oh, I desperately wanted to have hair like a girl. I think it was more sort of that feeling of like I know that I want this to be part of my expression of my gender, but it's being made to sort of like follow this other thing, and that incongruity being really upsetting, even at a time when I certainly couldn't understand what the feelings were about.
Do you remember the first time you became aware of transgender people in the world?
Unfortunately, like the truth is that so much of my exposure to even the idea of somebody being transgender was through this like media lens of the late 90s and 2000s, which was just basically like trans people were the butt of the joke always. And it's especially now that I am out as trans, going back and watching shows from that era, like stuff that I used to love, is it's like, wow, I can't believe how often this was used as like the butt of the joke too. It was just like, I don't know. I think this actually also played a part in why it took me so long to kind of figure out what was going on with me and that I was trans, because I just didn't have that many examples in my real life of trans people, and especially of trans feminine people. I think I had friends in my circle as a young adult that were trans masculine, so that was like a good, like, positive real life understanding of like what a, what is a trans person and how do they appear, and understanding them. But it was, I think, I was very much lacking in an example of like, well, what would it look like to like actually be a trans woman, and like what would transition look like, and like what are the kind of things they would be feeling before they realized that they wanted to transition. I think that was like really missing. And as a result, it wasn't even that I had considered, oh, I wonder if I'm trans. No, I don't think I am, like leading up to figuring it out. I just never asked the question. The first time I actually wondered that about myself was the moment that I realized that I was, because I think it just wasn't something that seemed like an option I should be considering just based on what I was exposed to growing up.
That really underscores the importance and the power of trans visibility.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's so important, both just for in day-to-day life, like actually like meeting and interacting with trans people and seeing what's like great and beautiful about them, and also seeing what's like super normal about them, and that like they're not we're not fundamentally different in some way. We're just people.
Girl, please forgive me if I text you too often. I just can't play things cool. I want to be your very best lover, but I moonlight as the fool. You see me in the morning light. You know my chart by heart. Oh, I know it's wrong, but we get along so well. Maybe we should fall in love.
Part of what Lightbird sings about, and a big part of what gives her music a sharp edge, is an element of self-reflection lying just below the surface. Nothing is taken for granted in life, love, or music.
Moments that we spend getting stoned, prospect, walking those wooded aisles. You'll see me in a different light. My desperate, my pleading heart. Oh, I know it's wrong to come on so strongly with my brand of overwhelming love.
Early in transition, there's like all this like, oh, newfound discovery and like certainty and authenticity, but there's also just as many doubts and questions as you like all the forces that kept you in that smaller version of yourself are still present and trying to like make you think like, oh, this is a phase, or this is you're misinterpreting or whatever. And so I think it was really important to me to like hold on to the moments where the gender euphoria and that really feeling of certainty of like, oh wow, I finally figured this out. Like I needed to hold on to those moments really, really tightly, to get through the times when things were harder, or when I was struggling with relationships or whatever it was. So, anyways, I recorded this little note to myself after this like silly little moment where I had been I think I was just tidying up in the living room, and like suddenly found myself just like dancing to the music I was listening to, in a feminine way, and in a way that just felt like I wouldn't have done that even 3 weeks ago before I kind of cracked all this open. And so I recorded a little note for myself, just sort of saying like, future me, if you're listening to this and feeling the doubts, just like think back to this moment, because like right in this moment, like I know that I know this is real, and I know this is who I am. If you are doubting that you are who you are, just remember the time alone in the living room watching Emmylou Harris on the TV, and completely just so naturally compelled to start dancing in a way that I wouldn't have before. And the huge jolt of, euphoria brought you to your knees in tears of joy. And just wanted to document that. I love you.
I loved with all of my heart. Tried to give more than I got, but I was just 17, didn't know I wasn't done searching. So I didn't see her. I couldn't see her. Older now, I thought wiser too, but holding only a cynical truth like fragile jade at 23. How could I have been left standing? So I didn't see her. I couldn't see her in my mirror. I could not be her. I'd never seen her. No, no, no.
As a creative artist, who are you writing for? Who are you creating for?
Honestly, I'm writing for anyone that like I think with music and like when I watch other musicians and listen to new music, yeah, there are specific genres that I love the most and like gravitate towards, but ultimately my barometer for, what do I think of this music or this performance always just comes down to like, do I feel moved by it? And like that's something you can't you can acquire taste and stuff, but I think ultimately like that's what I'm chasing is and working towards is just like I just want to create stuff that is going to make people feel something or like think about, still be thinking about something when the song ends or when I get off stage. Whereas like I think, as we talked about with visibility, like I think it's really important to me to be writing songs, especially to other, queer and trans people who can hear some of their story told and also hopefully like build upon that this collective work of like let's make ourselves more visible and make our stories more mainstream so people can understand what we're about and that make connections with us. It's also I like the idea of writing the music and making other people, especially like cis straight people out there, like listening to my song about my transition journey and like feeling something that's like incredibly powerful to me because it's a they're all human stories even if there are some elements that are specific to trans people. So I think when I think about what I'm writing, I'm just thinking about like what is something that I can take from my experience that like other people can maybe learn from, but mostly can see some of their own humanity reflected in and yeah, hopefully they'll tuck those songs under their arm and take them with them.
Are you surprised at your life?
Yeah, I'm super surprised at my life. A lot of times, a lot of days I kind of like look around at the people around me and like what my day to day is and just like still can't believe it. Most of all when I look at myself in the mirror or in the little video here, it's like I think even 3 years into transition and most of the time I have this you have your kind of like inner vision of how you are sort of manifesting physically out in the world. Even still, it's easy for that to kind of slip back, and for me to feel more like I used to feel. So the mirror has been a huge is always a huge tool for me to like actually see myself and be like, wow, like that's what I look like, and like that's how I'm appearing now to the people around me. And yeah, I know I remember one of the things my mom said to me in an early conversation after I came out. I was like, we were just so surprised because we just didn't expect this. And I was like, I didn't expect this. I'm equally surprised. Like did not see this coming, but I'm so glad it came. Having this like really like profound revelation at this stage in my adulthood has been like this enormous beautiful gift that I've given myself, and has been eye opening and mind expanding. And like I love the fact that it happened when it did, because I think it just was when it was supposed to happen. But there's a big part of me too, though, that like mourns the younger version, mourns for and grieves for the younger version of myself that never got to feel it. In whether it was in my 20s or in my teenage years or as a young kid, my heart breaks a little bit for her, because I think there were things that I just like couldn't understand about why I, felt like the weird person in the room, or just not able to like feel at ease in the way that other people did.
The life that we turn from, I think it's what I need. If I don't come back, there's no need to cover my tracks when it all goes so damn fast. You can't make it last.
Transitioning comes with all this excitement about, for me, like, oh, I can feel like a woman, and I can learn about makeup and all these new types of clothes, and can be in different types of relationships where like I'm, being perceived very, very differently in amongst groups and all this like new stuff. There's also for me, I went from being ostensibly like a cis straight man to suddenly like, a trans woman who is collectively as a group dealing with a lot of oppression right now. And that's I think something that I'm still like working through, even more so probably than the personal changes, is sort of like that sudden change of sort of your standing in the world, and kind of what you're going to do about it. You don't just gain a bunch of knowledge the moment that you transition about what it is to be trans, or like what trans culture is like, or all that stuff. That's you have to work through it and gain that slowly over time. I think I have some responsibility to spend some time learning more, especially on the history side of trans people. I also think it's important to quiet those voices, and also to like send reassurance to people who are earlier in their journey of understanding their gender or their sexuality, that like just because you don't know all the stuff doesn't make your queerness any less legitimate. Just understanding who you are is all that it really is about in the end.
What's next?
I'm still a very small artist, so music being my livelihood is, I'm not there. So there's a lot of other distractions and things that I need to work on to just, continue to exist, especially in a city like New York. But I really want to push myself to like focus my collective life energy on creating stuff and putting it out there, and just kind of like, so it feels like shouting into the void sometime, but even if it is, I'm just going to keep shouting, because I feel like the worst thing that we could do right now is get quieter. So keep singing out.
Weeks from my wedding day, lying with my little babe, but I am taking flight at 33 because that boy found
I'd like to thank Lightbird for sharing her music and her experiences for this program. Learn more about her music at lightbirdmusic.com. For Tell Me David, I'm David Hunt.
And I can't be heard.